Have you ever felt that sting when someone cuts you off mid-sentence, rolls their eyes, or makes a joke at your expense while everyone else laughs? It's a small moment, yet it burns like acid on the skin. You tell yourself to stay calm, to let it slide, but inside, a storm gathers. Respect, once chipped away, doesn't return easily. The Stoics knew this well. No one can wound your spirit unless you hand them the blade. So the real question is, how do you protect your dignity without losing your calm? Stay with me, and let's begin. As we step into the first chapter, picture this. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence, their voice louder, sharper, as if your presence were nothing more than background noise. You pause, your chest tightens, the impulse rises to fight back, to reclaim your space with words. But here's where the Stoic path offers another way. Instead of unleashing your anger or shrinking into silence, you hold their gaze. A long, calm, unshaken stare. Nothing more, nothing less. Now imagine the discomfort that settles in the room. They hoped for chaos, for a flicker of weakness they could exploit. But you denied them even that. Yet here you are, steady as a mountain, offering no fire to their spark. This is the quiet reversal of power. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The silent stare is the embodiment of this truth. You are no longer playing their game. You are defining the rules without speaking a single word. Let me take you inside a story. I once sat in a crowded meeting, surrounded by voices eager to prove themselves. One man, bold and overconfident, seemed determined to cut me off at every turn. I tried politeness. I tried to interject. He bulldozed through it all. Then I stopped, leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, met his eyes. No blinking, no expression. Just 5 steady seconds of silence. Suddenly, the noise fell flat. His words stumbled. He glanced away, searching for escape in the faces around the table. He never interrupted me again, and from that day forward, his tone toward me shifted, not because I had shouted louder, but because I had shown him something words could never say. Here's why it works. Those who disrespect are often searching for cracks in your armor. They thrive on reactions. They want to see you flustered, unsure, eager to prove your worth. But when you refuse to give them that satisfaction, when you simply let silence carry the weight of your presence, you hold up a mirror they cannot ignore. Their own behavior reflects back at them, raw and undeniable. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." The stare is that delay. A pause stretched into power. It denies them the fight they crave and leaves them wrestling with themselves instead. But let's dig deeper, because this is not just a tactic to shut someone down. It is a practice of self-respect. Too often we burn ourselves explaining, defending, proving, or worse, laughing off insults to avoid conflict. I used to be that person, nervously smiling at jokes meant to wound, offering long explanations for choices that needed none. Every time I did, I handed pieces of my dignity away, until I learned that a single unbroken silence could protect more than 100 words ever could. The silent stare is not aggression. It is not passive submission either. It is the art of standing rooted in your own worth, unshaken, unapologetic. It tells the world, I know who I am, and I will not be moved by cheap words. The truth is, silence can be louder than the sharpest insult. It can cut deeper than the fiercest argument. And it leaves behind a message no one forgets. This person cannot be played with. Think of it as reclaiming your space, your peace, your right to decide which battles deserve your energy. Disrespectful people often act without thought, their habits unchallenged for years. When you refuse to dance to their tune, you are not only protecting yourself, you are holding them accountable in the most subtle way possible. They cannot escape the discomfort of their own reflection. This is also where your self-worth is tested. Standing still under provocation feels unnatural. It feels small, yet in truth, it is immense. Each time you choose not to react, each time you let your silence settle into the room, you strengthen the unshakable part of yourself, the part no insult can reach. That strength builds quietly, day by day, until disrespect no longer pierces your armor. It bounces off like rain on stone. So when someone mocks, interrupts, or tries to make you feel less, remember this: you owe them nothing, not a laugh, not an explanation, not a burst of anger. Sometimes the clearest boundary, the most powerful no, is found in your eyes alone. Look at them. Let the silence breathe. Let them feel the weight of their own actions pressing down. Then walk away with your peace intact. Because in the end, the silent stare is more than a gesture. It is a declaration that your value is not up for debate, that your spirit is not a stage for anyone's drama, that your calm is yours to keep. And once you understand that, once you taste the freedom of standing tall in silence, you will never again give away your power so cheaply. From here, let's move into another form of silence, one that carries its own kind of thunder. If the stare is the shield, then the absence of words is the sword, and together they reshape the way you meet disrespect head-on. Moving into the second chapter, imagine this scene. A sharp remark lands in the room, crafted to sting, dressed up as a joke. All eyes turn to see how you will react. The trap is set. Every nerve in your body wants to snap back, to justify, to explain, but instead, you choose stillness. You let their words hang in the air, unanswered, until the silence grows heavier than the insult itself. That silence becomes your shield. That silence becomes your strike. Here's where the paradox reveals itself. Silence feels weak at first glance. It feels like surrender. Yet in truth, it is one of the strongest responses you can ever give. When someone disrespects you, they expect fire. They expect you to defend yourself, to lash out, to fight for their approval. They want your energy. When you give nothing, no words, no reaction, you deny them their victory. You strip the insult of its fuel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Silence is the act of realizing that strength. Let me tell you about a moment when I put this into practice. I was speaking casually with a group when one man, who loved his little digs, threw a barb about my work. He grinned, waiting for the rise, waiting for the defensive speech. The old me would have explained, perhaps even tried to make him understand, but not that day. I lifted my eyebrow, met his gaze, and said nothing. The pause stretched, the air thickened. He stumbled, mumbled, and looked away. The group shifted uncomfortably, not at me, but at him. He never tried that game with me again. This is the hidden power of silence. It forces the other person to sit alone with their own behavior. When you don't pick up the rope they've thrown to drag you into their fight, they are left holding it, tangled in their own negativity. Seneca said, "The best answer to anger is silence. Not silence of weakness, but silence of clarity." You're not required to dignify every insult with a response. Sometimes the absence of reaction is louder than any words you could craft. Think of it this way. Every reaction you give is like handing over a coin from your treasury of peace. Insults are designed to rob you of that treasure, piece by piece. But silence guards the vault. It says, "My peace is mine, and you cannot afford it." The person who starves disrespect of attention robs it of its only power, the power to disturb. I know it isn't easy. I used to believe that silence meant others would think I was weak, that they would believe the insult. But I began to notice something. Each time I argued back, each time I defended myself, I left the encounter drained, empty. But when I held my tongue, when I let the insult pass like meaningless noise, I walked away lighter, stronger, more in control. Silence became my reclaiming of what was mine all along, my energy, my calm, my dignity. Here's the deeper truth. Silence is not about ignoring the problem. It is about refusing to be ruled by it. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Choosing silence is choosing sovereignty. It's the quiet crown you place on your own head. In that moment, you reclaim sovereignty over yourself. And that is the essence of Stoic strength. Picture it again. Someone throws an insult. You pause, breathe, let it pass. You do not react. They shift in their seat, unsettled, because the fight they wanted does not exist without you. Silence has spoken the loudest message of all. I am untouchable. That is not passivity. That is mastery. So the next time disrespect comes dressed as humor or passive aggression or a blunt attack, pause before your lips move. Ask yourself, does this deserve my words, or does it deserve only my silence? More often than not, the silence will serve you better than 1,000 explanations. At this stage, you begin to see silence not as emptiness, but as presence, a calm presence that unsettles the aggressor and strengthens you. Because silence, when chosen with intent, is not the absence of response. It is the ultimate response. It is the sword disguised as stillness. And as this silence hardens into strength, it prepares you for the next battle, the endless demands for explanation, the constant questions meant to chip away at your choices. That is where we step next, into the courage of living without apology. Advancing to the third chapter, feel this image clearly. You make a choice that feels right for you, changing direction, turning down an invitation, choosing a different path. And almost instantly, the questions begin. Why didn't you go? Why would you risk that? Why not stay safe? The words arrive like stones hurled at your steps, as if your life were an open courtroom where strangers serve as judges. You feel the old pull to defend, to explain, to soften the sharpness of their doubt. But here is where the Stoic path demands something braver. Stop explaining. Now imagine standing in your truth like a soldier holding the line. You decide. You act. And when asked why, you answer with the simplest words, because I wanted to. That's it. No PowerPoint presentation, no 15 reasons to convince, just stillness in your choice. It feels rebellious at first, almost dangerous. But it's not. It's liberation. Seneca reminded us, if you live according to nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to opinion, you will never be rich. Opinions multiply endlessly, but your nature, your reasoned choice, that is enough. I remember a season when I walked away from a safe career. The kind that promises steady income, predictable days, and quiet approval. The moment I stepped into risk, people looked at me as if I had announced I was leaving Earth. They asked questions not to understand, but to pull me back into their comfort. At first, I tried to explain. I talked about fulfillment, about passion, about a plan, but no answer was ever enough. Every explanation bred more doubt, not less. Until one day, when asked again, I simply said because I chose to. The silence that followed was powerful. It shut the door they had been pushing open, and in that silence, I felt free. Here's the deeper truth. People demand explanations because your choice unsettles their fear. Your courage exposes what they have avoided. Your independence makes them question their own chains. Explaining yourself doesn't ease that tension, it feeds it. But when you refuse to justify, when you let your calm know, or your simple, because I wanted to stand alone, you cut off their access to your energy. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Stop chasing approval. Stop building elaborate defenses. Simply live. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a truly confident person breaking down every decision for the crowd? You don't. Because confidence doesn't explain, it walks forward. Confidence doesn't apologize, it acts. And the more you explain, the more you invite others to sit in judgment over a life that isn't theirs. Your life is not an open vote, it is a private command, and the only approval that matters is your own. I used to be trapped in that cycle. Every decision was followed by explanations, as if I were writing essays for an invisible jury. I thought clarity would silence them. Instead, it drained me. Each defense left me smaller, less certain, until I realized that my peace was leaking through every unnecessary word. So, I made a pact with myself. I will answer briefly, a sentence if I must. If pressed, I will smile and move on. That pact saved me. It gave me back hours of energy, days of calm, years of freedom. From here, let's pull back and look at what this means for you. When you stop explaining, you begin living without apology. You reclaim the space where your will is enough. You remind yourself daily, I don't owe my reasons to anyone who isn't carrying the weight of my life. The next time someone asks you to justify, pause, breathe, say less, let the silence do the work. You will feel your strength rise as theirs dissolves. This is where the lesson sharpens. Your choices are valid simply because you made them. You don't need permission slips. You don't need endless defense. Your life is not a stage for their approval, so claim it, protect it, live it. And before we move into the next chapter, let me leave you with this. Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It simply stands. If these words speak to you, pause now, subscribe so you don't lose this path of strength, and write just 2 words in the comments. No apology. Then carry that phrase into your day. Because when you stop explaining, you start living. And that is the beginning of true freedom. From here, we step into another truth. Sometimes the only way to honor your worth is to create distance, to choose space over suffocation. That is where we go next. Moving into the 4th chapter, imagine standing in a crowded room where someone keeps cutting you down with little remarks. You smile politely, tell yourself not to take it seriously, but each jab lands like a stone dropped in water. Ripples spread. Soon, you're walking on eggshells, bracing yourself for the next sting. It feels easier to endure than to confront, but slowly, your peace is eaten away. Here's where the Stoic path reminds us of something simple yet radical. Not everyone deserves a front-row seat in your life. Now imagine your life as a theater. The stage is yours, the lights are yours, the story is yours, seats are limited. Why should those who mock, criticize or drain you be given the closest view? Why should their shadows stretch across your performance? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do. Only what you do." Creating distance is not cruelty, it is an act of preservation. It is your way of choosing who earns the right to influence your state of mind. I once had a friend like that, sharp tongue, sharper smirk. Every choice I made seemed to invite his criticism, my work, my relationships, even the music I enjoyed. At first, I brushed it off, told myself I was overreacting, but each meeting left me smaller, bent beneath the weight of anticipation. The next insult, the next joke disguised as care. Until one day, I stopped playing along. I didn't argue. I didn't stage a confrontation. I simply began to step back. Once a week turned to once a month. And in that space, something remarkable happened. I felt lighter, clearer, free. The fog lifted and I could see just how toxic the air had become. This is where distance becomes medicine. It clears the noise long enough for you to hear your own voice again. It shows you which relationships feed your growth and which ones starve it. Seneca warned, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." To do that, you must first give yourself permission to walk away from those who do the opposite. Distance is not abandonment. It is alignment. You are aligning your life with those who see your worth, rather than those who chip away at it. And yes, guilt will whisper. Society loves to chant loyalty, forgiveness, endless patience. They will tell you, "But they are family," or "But you've known them for years," as if time were enough to justify disrespect, as if blood gave permission to wound. Here's the truth. Loyalty without respect is a chain, not a virtue. Forgiveness without boundaries is surrender. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is survival. Think of distance not as exile, but as breathing room. It is stepping back to see the full picture, to recenter, to remember who you are. When you create that space, you are not punishing the other person, you are honoring yourself. You are saying, "My energy matters, my mind matters, my spirit matters." And in that statement lies self-respect. I once believed I had to endure every person who entered my circle, as if shutting a door was cruelty. But the more I practiced distance, the more I realized something profound. Every step back from disrespect was also a step forward into freedom. I had more time, more clarity, more space for the people who uplifted me instead of draining me. The less room I gave to those who tore me down, the less power they had over me. Epictetus taught, "Keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." When you keep your circle filled with those who respect you, your confidence grows naturally. When you limit exposure to those who thrive on tearing you apart, their claws lose reach. Distance is not avoidance. Distance is discipline. It is the deliberate act of curating the environment where your spirit can grow. This is the hard truth. You do not owe everyone access to you. You do not owe them your time, your ears, your presence. Access to your life is a privilege, not a right. And the moment you internalize this, you no longer feel guilty for stepping back. You no longer hesitate to close the door gently on those who cannot walk through it with respect. So, here's the challenge. Look around at your circle. Who drains you? Who leaves you heavy, smaller, uncertain? Then ask yourself, do they truly deserve this much access to my life? The answer may be uncomfortable, but the act of asking is already the beginning of freedom. At this stage, distance transforms from something that feels harsh into something that feels necessary. It is the shield you raise not to hurt others, but to protect yourself. It is the line you draw not out of hate, but out of love for your own dignity. And when you step back from what diminishes you, you make space for what will build you. As we close this chapter, carry this truth with you. Distance is not the absence of love, it is the presence of self-respect. And with that respect, you are ready for the next lesson, the art of walking tall, head high, unshaken by the weight of anyone's contempt. Entering the 5th chapter, picture this. A voice dripping with sarcasm, a smirk carved on someone's face, their words designed to press you down an inch at a time. The temptation is to shrink, to lower your gaze, to let their shadow fall across you. That's what they want, to see you small, to see you doubt. But here's where the Stoic response begins, not with anger, not with retreat, but with posture. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes steady. Holding your head high becomes your shield and your declaration. Now imagine walking into a room after years of bowing your head. The light feels different. People notice something they can't explain. You are no longer asking for space. You are claiming it. Those who thrive on disrespect begin to falter because their power depends on your surrender. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. In the same way, waste no time arguing for your dignity. Stand in it." Every inch of your posture becomes proof that their words have no jurisdiction over your worth. I remember a time when I didn't know this truth. Each insult landed like a blade, the same person, always the same smirk, cutting me down with little comments disguised as humor. I laughed nervously, brushed it off, but inside it cut. Soon I dreaded his presence, preparing defenses before a single word was spoken. Then one day, something shifted. I walked in with my shoulders square, my head high, and when the remark came, I met it with nothing but a calm look and a quiet smile. His words slid off like water on stone, and for the first time, he backed down. The insults dried up, not because he changed, but because I did. Here's what many don't realize. Confidence unsettles those who disrespect. It dismantles their game. They rely on the illusion that their opinion holds weight, that their voice can tilt your self-image. But when you refuse to bend, when you walk tall as if carved from iron, they see their power dissolve. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Confidence in the face of insult is your proof. It shows that you are not defined by their words, but by your own composure. There's something magnetic about this stance. It's not arrogance, it's not defiance, it is quiet certainty. And certainty, in a world built on doubt, is radical. People who disrespect will hate to see it. They will question it. They will find it offensive that you dare to walk freely without their approval. Let them. Their discomfort is not your burden. In fact, it is proof that you have risen beyond their reach. I used to think confidence was a gift bestowed from outside, something earned from success, validation, applause. But the Stoics taught the opposite. Confidence is claimed. It is an act, a decision, a discipline. Each time you lift your head instead of lowering it, each time you walk tall instead of folding, you engrave dignity deeper into your soul. Over time, it becomes natural. The insults don't even register. You are too busy living, too rooted in your own lane to be shaken by background noise. Think of it as a silent force field. Holding your head high is not only about posture, it's about presence. It tells the world, I know who I am, and nothing you do can rewrite that truth. You become the main character of your story again, no longer an extra in someone else's play. And here's the deeper lesson. Self-worth is not something borrowed from others. It is not handed down by approval. It is claimed from within, and once claimed, it cannot be revoked by anyone's contempt. So the next time disrespect finds you, whether through a sly remark, a direct insult, or a subtle attempt to make you doubt, pause, breathe, square your shoulders, lift your head, meet their eyes as if to say, "I see you, but I stand above this." You will feel the rush of strength, the quiet peace of knowing that their words hold no blade sharp enough to cut you. At this stage, confidence becomes more than defense. It becomes a way of life, a silent reminder that dignity is not negotiable. And as you walk with your head high, you remind not just others, but yourself, that respect begins within. Stand tall, own your worth, and never forget you are already enough. From here, the path leads us to the final lesson, where self-respect hardens into unshakable presence, and you discover the freedom that comes from living untouchable. Advancing to the 6th chapter, imagine the sting of a sarcastic remark thrown casually across the room. The tone is sharp, the eyes around you turn, waiting to see how you will respond. In that instant, you feel the familiar pull, the urge to defend, to snap, or to quietly shrink into yourself. But instead, you choose another path. You smile, a calm, unbothered smile. Then, with a light remark, you turn the moment upside down. Suddenly the tension breaks and the laughter shifts. Not at you, but at the one who tried to wound you. The entire atmosphere changes, and without raising your voice, you have disarmed the attack. This is the hidden power of humor. Disrespect thrives on tension. It wants to pull you into its gravity, to make you carry the weight of someone else's bitterness. Humor cuts that gravity loose. It flips the dynamic without aggression, without defense, without wasted energy. And when done with calm confidence, it leaves the aggressor smaller, weaker, exposed. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears." Humor is one way of rejecting that injury. It says, "Your words do not pierce me, they amuse me, and that is strength." I remember one afternoon sitting in a group conversation. The energy was light until one man, known for his cutting wit, decided to use me as his target. His words, coated in sarcasm, were meant to embarrass. The old version of me would have stiffened. Maybe I would have tried to explain myself or laughed nervously to keep the peace. But that day, I didn't. I looked at him, smiled, and said calmly, "You must have been rehearsing that one." The room shifted instantly. Laughter broke out, but it wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at the hollow cruelty of his joke, and he never tried it again. Not because I attacked him, but because I refused to give him the reaction he craved. Here's why this matters. When someone disrespects you, they expect one of two things: anger or submission. They expect you to rise in fury, which gives them the fight they want, or to shrink in silence, which hands them the victory. Humor offers a third way. It disarms without conceding. It deflects without diminishing. It makes the aggressor look foolish while you remain untouchable. Seneca once said, "It is more civilized to laugh at life than to lament over it." And laughter, when used with clarity, is one of the sharpest tools you can carry. But here's the key. Humor must be rooted in calm, not cruelty. It is not about mocking in return or trying to humiliate. That would only drag you into the same pit as the one who attacked you. True Stoic humor comes from a place of strength, a place where their words cannot find purchase. It is the kind of humor that shows the world you are too grounded to be moved by cheap insults. When people see you respond with lightness instead of anger, they sense something unshakable in you, something beyond their reach. Humor also carries another gift. It doesn't just protect you, it transforms the room itself. When disrespect is met with anger, the air grows heavier. When it is met with silence, the tension lingers, leaving everyone unsettled. But when it is met with humor, the heaviness lifts. The energy shifts. The insult loses its sting, and everyone present sees that the aggressor's weapon has failed. They see clearly that you are untouchable. I have seen this again and again. People who rely on mockery, who build their confidence on tearing others down, collapse when their jokes fall flat. They crumble when the room laughs, not with them, but at them. And all it takes is your refusal to be harmed, your choice to rise above with a smile. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Humor severs the rope before it binds you." In that lightness, you stay free. By choosing amusement, you remind yourself and everyone else that your dignity is not up for debate. Think of humor as a subtle sword, hidden in plain sight. Anger burns you as much as it burns them. Silence protects you, but can leave the weight of the insult hanging. Distance removes you from the field altogether. But humor ends the battle before it even begins. It cuts through the noise with grace. It makes it clear that you are not wounded, not shaken, not interested in playing their game. And often, it is enough to silence them forever. So here's the challenge. The next time someone aims to belittle you with sarcasm, pause. Don't give them anger. Don't even give them silence alone. Give them light. Smile. Offer a remark so simple, so calm, that it floats above their malice like smoke rising into the air. Watch how quickly the power they thought they had slips away. Watch how the energy of the moment bends in your favor. At this stage, you begin to see humor not as dismissal, but as mastery. It is the final reminder that no one controls your spirit unless you hand it to them. When you laugh, not because you are blind to insult, but because you see it clearly and choose to rise above, you show the highest form of strength. Your calm becomes contagious, your lightness becomes power, and you prove that disrespect has no weapon sharp enough to cut through a soul that refuses to be chained. And that concludes 6 powerful ways to rise above those who fail to respect you. Some people will never change, and that weight is not yours to carry. Life is too short to keep bending for those who cannot see your worth. The Stoics remind us that respect begins within. You do not need approval to stand tall. You do not need permission to guard your peace. Your dignity is already yours. The world will always test you. There will be voices that question, provoke, or try to shrink you down. Yet, you decide what energy to let in. Each time you hold to your self-respect, each time you refuse to explain yourself or walk away from what diminishes you, you build an invisible shield. With that shield, you create room for those who uplift you, who see your value, who strengthen your spirit rather than weaken it. It begins the moment you claim your power and stop apologizing for it. So stand tall, let silence serve you, and never doubt the worth you carry. If this message speaks to you, subscribe to keep building strength. And in the comments, leave just 2 words: stand tall. Until next time, stay steady and stay strong.